This is the Money Loves Women podcast, the podcast that guides women to wealth and an extraordinary life. Here's your host, Dr. Deborah Ekstrom.
This is Dr. Deborah Ekstrom for the Money Loves Women podcast. I'd like to welcome Julie Forten. And Julie is a financial planner with Northstar Financial Planning. And she's a partner and wealth manager there. It's very women-centered from what she describes. It's a fiduciary wealth management firm, and she's going to tell us what those terms mean. Provides a path forward for women and couples, especially during emotionally tumultuous times, challenging times, and life transitions when we are at our most vulnerable sometimes financially. So welcome to the program, Julie. I'm really eager to hear what you have to say today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'd like to have you just give us some context for starters around where you grew up, what your growing up years were like, and sort of what influenced you.
Sure. So I grew up north of Boston in a small town and grew up with an older sister, two working parents, middle income type family. My dad was college educated. My mother was not. So my dad was an engineer. My mom was a graphic designer and went to college out in Western Massachusetts, studied business, and went on to work in Boston after that, in the investment management space, so financial services, and then ended up getting a master's degree in finance not too long after that. So my 20s were basically spent in Boston, in the downtown area, financial services, two different investment management firms. And it wasn't until my late 20s when I had gotten married and had my first child that things kind of shifted for me in terms of not wanting to commute into the city any longer and really reassessing what I wanted to do long-term for my career. And, like a lot of big life transitions that come along, having a child kind of makes you reprioritize how you're spending your time. And if you are going to spend your time out of the house, at least for me, I wanted it to be work that was more fulfilling and feeling like I was having more of a direct impact on people. So I ended up kind of stepping back and reassessing. I started to take classes towards getting certified as a certified financial planner, kind of taking
Yeah, so let me just ask you a couple questions.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure.
You were in the financial services industry. How did you land there?
Yeah, kind of just out of college, finding a first job. I didn't know at that point really what I wanted to do long term. It was really just, okay, working in finance makes the most sense. I did have a concentration in college of finance.
All right. So you were already leaning in that direction.
Correct.
And so it made perfect sense for you to find a job there. And Boston certainly has plenty of financially oriented centers. And what specifically did you do when in your first jobs?
Yeah, so my first job was working in mutual fund accounting. So this was back when at the end of the day, every price of every mutual fund would have to be published in the paper. And so working on the accounting for mutual funds throughout the day to kind of get that end price published in the paper is kind of the goal. So all the inflows and outflows of mutual funds for an investment bank. So that was my first job.
Okay. And how'd you like that?
I liked it a lot. I learned a ton. And then, as things do kind of morph from there into wanting to get more on the, what I thought was the more exciting side of the investment management itself. So made a shift to a different firm that was an institutional money manager.
Were there other women in financial services at a high level in your companies at that time?
It's a really good question. There were, but not too many. It was
Not too
mostly,
many.
no, it was mostly men
Yeah.
in the upper management positions for
Okay.
sure.
Did you have any encouragement from any middle management or any women or men in financial services? Did they want you to grow and advance?
I did to a certain extent. Um, I definitely felt that women in that space had to work a little bit harder to kind of be recognized
Mhm.
as moving up. So I
Yeah.
did move up when I was in my first job into a kind of an entry level management position, but because I ended up leaving there and going to a different firm, kind of starting all over.
Yeah. I've talked to a number of women who have worked in financial services. And maybe because I'm self-selecting for some
Hmm.
of them that are entrepreneurial in nature, it's not uncommon to hear your story where you've been in the financial services industry. It tends to be pretty intense. It tends to be fairly male dominated at the upper levels, which is neither here nor there. But uh, and then they reassess their priorities and decide they can run their own show. And
Right.
that's what you did. Yeah. What
Right.
does it what does it take? Just shine a light on that a little bit. What does it take to get your certifications? What do you have to study to get your certifications, or what experience do you need to become a certified financial planner? Or would you be
Yes.
called something different than that? Are you really more of a wealth advisor or wealth manager?
So I'm a certified financial planner.
Okay, so you do, yeah. So you got certified, you told me, and that's what that means, right? And
Correct.
what are the certifications about? Tell me what you have to study and what kind of tests you have to take to get your
Yeah. So
certificate.
so if you have some sort of formal education in, for example, having a master's degree in finance would have exempted me from taking some of the CFP courses that are required to get the certification. However, I decided to not go that route. I wanted to take the full program of classes. So I believe, gosh, it's been a while. So I think it is 6, maybe 7 different areas of study. So a basics in financial planning, and then all the different areas of financial planning. So estate
Right.
planning is a course, tax planning is a course, retirement planning, um,
Yes.
advanced investments, things like that. So everything you can imagine that you would need
Yes.
to be educated on. In addition to the education requirement, you also have to have, it's the equivalent of 3 years worth of full-time work experience directly working in some capacity with clients in financial planning.
Right. Okay. And there's a lot of regulations and rules and requirements that you need to know and be able to be compliant with, correct?
Yes, once you are certified. So at the end of taking the courses and having the work requirement required, you also have to pass a pretty vigorous exam at the end of it, which in my day was a 2-day, it spanned across 2 days. It was a 10-hour in-person exam, 6 hours one day, 4 hours the next. And then you had to wait 5 weeks to get your results. I don't think it's that grueling anymore. It's on a computer, so you get your results a little bit sooner, but it's still as intense from what I hear. And so after passing all of those requirements, getting the designation as a certified financial planner, you then have continuing education that you need to meet every year.
Excellent. So everybody's staying up to par.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And part of that has to be in ethics. Part of those
Excellent.
CEs have to be in ethics.
Can you tell me what it means to be a fiduciary, or share with our listeners what it means to be a fiduciary?
Sure. So some certifications, like the Certified Financial Planner designation, come along with a fiduciary responsibility. So, meaning you are legally required to always be working in the best interest of your clients. And so there's a lot of talk in the industry, between kind of different service models and how advisors are paid. And none of those are good or bad. It's really just making sure as a consumer that you understand how any financial professional that you're working with, how they're paid and what that means for you. So if, for example, somebody works at a broker dealer where they're paid commissions for putting you in certain investment products, that is not necessarily a bad thing. You just need to understand what that means and if there might be any conflict of interest for an advisor to put you in, mutual fund A versus mutual fund B. We are at my firm, we are fee only, meaning we've just decided as a firm to not be in that space of getting paid any commissions from outside either insurance companies or outside investment companies. So fee only means that we are only paid fees from our clients for financial advice and financial services. So yeah, in
That
terms of
takes
the
away,
conflict of interest
it
piece,
takes some of the push and pull away.
it takes some of that away.
Take some of that away for the financial advisor to stand outside themselves and say, okay, am I being a good fiduciary here, or am I being influenced by something of financial gain for myself? So that's always the conflict, right?
Right.
But when someone is a fiduciary, that means they have made a commitment and are legally obligated to make decisions or help you make decisions, give advice that's in the direction of what they believe is your best interest.
That's right. That's right. And
yes.
As a fiduciary, I truly believe that working as a fiduciary gives you the luxury of never actually thinking about the fact that you're a fiduciary. It never crosses my mind. It is just the way that I work.
Yes.
And if you have to think about what you're doing and are you a fiduciary, then there's probably something wrong there.
Yes, you don't want to have to be testing yourself all the time or checking to see if you've got that under control.
Right.
Now, I know that you are very oriented toward women, Julie. You're oriented toward women.
Yes.
What specific areas of financial advising either do you enjoy or have you concentrated on?
So those are kind of one and the same in terms of concentrating on women, definitely a women-centric firm. So our firm is all women, which is kind of not standard in the industry. And believe it or not by design. We did not set out to be all women. It really is just the way the chips have fallen. And so we happen to be an all-women firm at the moment. And probably for that reason and other reasons, we have attracted a lot of women clients. So a little more than half of our clients are women who have come to us through major life transitions. So things like becoming a widow or getting a divorce or being a single woman on the cusp of retirement or an inheritance, all of these life events where significant dollars are involved. And so that's kind of one half of the clients of our firm. And then the other half happen to be couples, but even for the couples that we serve, we're still women focused, meaning women just haven't been traditionally recognized and valued in our industry as a whole. And so the couples that we work with, I would define them as, the husband and or significant other in the relationship is a certain type of person where they want to work with an advisor and a team where the woman in the relationship is valued and recognized for what she brings to the table. And sometimes that means that she's not as interested in the financial day-to-day or the investments or whatever that looks like, but it doesn't mean that she doesn't have an opinion and doesn't have a lot to bring to the table in terms of this being their financial lives. And let's be honest, women traditionally outlive men. And so it's kind of the combination of those two, having women be involved in their own financial lives, receive education about their financial lives to the extent that they want to, or I should say at the pace that they prefer. And then having a relationship with advisors that want them to be at the table and treat them with respect.
Do you think in your firm, the culture of your teaching and training and interaction with women is such that it differentiates you from some other firms? Because I have heard of women feeling very intimidated or disengaging from the whole financial conversation and bringing, more of a request as, please let my significant other, my husband, my partner take care of this, because they feel intimidated and then they're not encouraged or supported or welcomed to the table by their financial advisor.
Absolutely. I think there's a lack of confidence that runs deep for women when it comes to money. And I think it is shifting slowly shifting. But the other thing that's different about, I would say, our firm, because it's not just me, the advisors here at Northstar, we all have different areas of expertise in addition to being certified financial planners. But there's another advanced degree that all of us, or I should say certification, that all of us also hold, which is the Certified Financial Transitionist designation. It's a mouthful, but it's really a professional training that trains advisors in both the financial, so the technical and the emotional side of money transactions, and recognizing that both are equally as deep and complex as the other side. And so it's a lot of training in helping clients through these significant life transitions that also have emotions to them. I mean, we know that financial decisions are made by the emotional part of our brain. And so historically, our industry has kind of been focused on the technical, kind of feeding information to clients, where I think there's a beautiful and important shift happening in our industry slowly that is recognizing that while we may be the kind of experts in the financial tools, and we may have a deeper toolbox when it comes to the technical, products and solutions, clients and women are always the expert in themselves and kind of that history that they bring to the table in their financial lives and their own relationship with money. And so until you as an advisor can really know your client in a deep and meaningful way and what's important to them, what brings them value and purpose, and what are they trying to truly accomplish in this lifetime, not just a checking the box of, I've heard retirement at 65 is what I should say, really what they value. And then helping them along that path, implement what they can, and knowing that a lot of clients are going to get stuck, at some point in the process for various reasons. And so this training is more in the when emotions get high or when a client gets stuck, kind of helping them work through that.
It's so interesting that you'd have that additional training, and I didn't even know that existed, honestly.
Yes.
I had a financial advisor friend who told me that he wished he had a psychologist on staff.
Yes.
And I think maybe women fit into this area of helping people make emotional transitions quite naturally.
Right.
And how wonderful that that's being recognized and offered. I think that's just terrific.
Right.
Can you tell me, Julie, can you give me some for instances of how you've actually managed some of these transitions and how you've helped women without revealing too much? Can you give me some stories?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So some examples of kind of high level what this might look like would be, for example, a professional woman who was in her late 40s and lost her husband unexpectedly with two young boys. And so kind of came in, and what that looked like for this client was a life insurance check and some investment accounts of her husband's that felt very overwhelming in terms of what she should be doing moving forward with this money, and also a extreme fear, I think, of really having her stuck, of wanting to be the best steward of these life insurance dollars, and what that represented. And so this was somebody who, prior to working with us, I imagine was a very, type A, very able to handle a lot, high capacity type personality type. And then kind of came in and slowly, I think one of the differences is that when you work with a financial advisor, sometimes there's a lot of focus on the investment side and kind of moving forward with the investments. Let's get the investments. Where sometimes the best thing to do is nothing when it comes to investing. So kind of just parking the money over here, someplace safe where it's not doing anything, but until you can kind of figure out what your plan is. So another part of our training is really in specific tools around kind of meeting individual clients where they are and walking them through it. So for this particular client, it was a lot of prioritizing. So a lot of, what needs to happen now, and what order, and what order do those tasks need to happen, and then what can happen next, and then what can be put later, right? So a now, soon,
Right.
later list of things, helping her
Sure.
prioritize.
Sure. It sounds like sort of a taking stock. That's the first thing I thought of when you said, oh, she's, ordinarily she can handle all these things and juggle all these things. And now here she is, a widow. She's got two young kids to be thinking about their education, their upbringing. She's a single parent now. And she's, as you said, she's a steward of these dollars. She wants to put them to the best use. And you didn't rush her into doing anything. You encouraged her to park her money and take stock and do first things first. And I think it really speaks well for you, Julie. I'm not sure, not intentionally, but I see this difference between plastic surgeons. So when a woman comes to a man, usually they want to tick that box for, I have fixed the problem. They're wired that way. It's not a negative. It's just how they're wired. How men are wired. And you didn't do that. You didn't say, okay, don't worry. We can find places for this money. We'll help it grow. We'll make sure it's there for your kids when they're in college. And let's do this, that, and the other thing. You helped her stop and take stock, figure out her values, I assume, what her priorities and desires, and what she wanted her life to look like in the future. And
Right.
then take some action and leave all the things that could be taken care of later so she didn't get overwhelmed. So that sounds really great.
Right. And sometimes
Yeah,
it doesn't
that's,
always look like maximizing dollars, right? It's
yes.
not always trying to squeak out the absolute maximum dollars that you can get from any transaction. Sometimes it's keeping money safe so that a person feels safe and they feel like they are being a good steward of the money that they inherited, from a
Yeah.
spouse or from a parent or something
Mhm.
like that.
And letting them get trained and get their feet on the ground and get through the process.
Right.
Yes.
And oftentimes when it comes to women in going through a significant life transition, it's a pacing. It's following their pace of what they need at a given time. So not rushing them through. And oftentimes that means, a year later when they are kind of through, there's various stages of a transition, right? So you're kind of working with them as they go through passage into a new normal. And then once they get to a place of a new normal, they'll kind of look back and say, gosh, it was all such a blur. How did we get through, ABC at that time? And, that's the exact reason why I think it's important to not rush through these things, because, they're grieving. They have a lot going on emotionally and they have a lot on their plates. And I think pacing is a big part of that.
I can see where you use a lot of intuition with your clients.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah. If someone's looking for a financial advisor, let's say they are either approaching or are going through a transition,
Mm-hmm.
uh, if they check in with you and say, Julie, I think you might be the right financial advisor for me, but I'm not really sure what questions I should ask you to be sure of that. What should I be asking you so that I know that we, in fact, will be a good fit?
Yes, that's a really good question. We do have a checklist that we sometimes will send out to prospective clients of what we feel are the important questions. But I think of that list, probably, how do you work with clients? There's lots of different types of firms that offer different services, and any given firm is not going to be a right fit for everybody. So it's, I think, both a learning about the prospective client and then also having that client learn about you as an advisor, your firm, your other business partners, or whoever else is in the mix, to know if it's an appropriate fit, both from a fee standpoint and what they'd be getting. So there's that big, I would say, overarching piece of how do you charge for your services and what's included in those services. So I think if people are honest about that, then that's going to weed out, somebody that might not be looking for comprehensive planning, for example, or somebody that wants, more of a assets under management fee schedule versus a flat fee. So I'd like to walk people through kind of what those differences are and what that looks like so that they have a lay of the land in helping them determine what is best for them. I think that's a big one. And also, is it a one-off? Do you have some sort of investment question that once you get answered, you want to go on your way? Or are you looking for more? So is it transactional, or is it more of an ongoing relationship that you're looking for with somebody?
Got it.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you some questions about yourself. So you left financial services in Boston after you had your daughter, right?
Yes.
Because you felt like you wanted a little more control of your time, and I've heard that a lot. The thing I'm asking you now is, you didn't find that as fulfilling as you wanted for your life work. Tell me about your life now, about the practice of wealth management and financial advising, and how does that fit for you now, and why?
Gosh, that's a really good question. I think that for me, because I can only speak firsthand of my own experience. For me, it's been quite the adventure in really finding that authentic professional space for myself and getting to the point where I realized my goal professionally was actually to get to a place where my professional life and my personal life totally blurred. I didn't want there to be a line anymore. That was where I got to. So for me, I am a lot more fulfilled at this point in my career because the line is very blurred between, sometimes I'm doing work that it doesn't feel like work because it's something that I really enjoy personally, that I would be doing it even if I weren't getting paid for it. So I think that is important if you're someone that's kind of striving for work that is meaningful and fulfilling. For me, that has been it. And finding a space within the industry that I can feel good about, that I feel like I'm helping to move the needle forward in some capacity. So I've kind of moved beyond traditional financial planning and into the space of financial psychology, and have gotten, additional certificates and degrees in that space. And now it's training other advisors and doing some writing in the Journal of Financial Planning to other advisors. So speaking more to peers about how important it is as humans, not advisors versus clients. It's more just as humans, how important it is if you're in a a profession where you are caring for others' lives and for other people, how important it is to care for yourself and be able to care for others' well-being and create that safe space for people. It can't just be you not practicing what you preach. So
Yeah, I get the message from you that you enjoy helping people become even more successful, or and supporting them through that, and becoming a person who's not only advising but also in relationship with that your clients. And I'm sure people really see that and appreciate it, because it's a very caring method of interacting, and it's important for trust, I think. And
right.
when you have that, not that any other approach is wrong, but that approach seems to me very caring. And I can see why it would be fulfilling to you. And I can see that you love your work, which is,
Yes.
don't we all want to work with a professional who loves their work? Of course we do.
Right. It is all of that. And the recognition that just the history of the financial services industry and most of us not being trained in financial matters and how uncomfortable that is. And so
Yes.
helping to have clients not just become financially successful in whatever capacity that means for them, but to be financially comfortable. So a lot of
Hmm.
times that means couples being comfortable talking about money with each other and having it not be a source of conflict. It's very satisfying. It's just a different lens through which I look at the industry and the work that I do now. It's less about, like I said, less about maximizing dollars for every person and more about what we call financial life planning. It's really maximizing your life so that, if you're not intentionally planning on passing away with $5 million, then if that were to happen, I see that as a failure, right? Because that means that you could have been doing more in this lifetime with, right? So it's not always maximizing. It's maximizing life while you're here and doing the things that you want to be doing.
It's not she who dies with the most money wins.
Right. Right. And being comfortable with finances is part, we know that there's a big impact, between financial health and physical health and psychological well-being and relationship satisfaction. We know that there's such an overlap. So I do
Yes.
think of money as being more so in the well-being space than it is in the financial space. So that's really the
Yes.
lens.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I heard an interesting statistic, and I've said this before. At some point in time, 98% of women will be the sole person responsible for their money and finances. So it's so critically important that this training happens so that confidence grows.
Right.
And that if that happens best with a relationship with an advisor and planner, then so be it. But I can tell that you're very interested in making sure that your clients are financially literate at a level that they're comfortable with,
It
and that
is.
you're eager to bring that forward. So congratulations. I'm very impressed with your culture and your approach. It's
Thank
really
you.
comforting to see.
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
I do think it's a little, different space of the world that we're occupying here.
I think it's pretty evolved. I do. If someone wanted to reach out and work with you, Julie, how would they go about doing that?
Sure. Probably the best way is our website,
Mm-hmm.
Northstar FP, so Northstar Financial Planning.com. Or my email is julie@northstarfp.com. And I'm on all
Okay,
the social media channels.
great. Northstarfp.com or
Yes,
Julie at northstarfp.com.
right.
Very good. Julie, if you were going to give women in general one piece of actionable counsel or advice that they could do to make themselves more successful in whatever way, what would you say?
I feel like this is kind of a broken record, but financial education. I feel like whether you are working with a professional or doing anything financial on your own, educating yourself so that you know what you own, what you owe. And it doesn't have to be complicated. I think, unfortunately, there's been a lot of advice out there that, again, depending on who it's coming from, could be overly complex and make one feel like it's too hard, it's too time consuming, you're never going to figure it out, why start? And I think that that's really, really far from the truth. And I want to see more women kind of taking control of their finances, because it's so rewarding when you do. It builds a lot of confidence.
Excellent advice. Don't think that it's so complicated or complex that you can't get it. You absolutely can.
That's right.
Take on the responsibility for your own finances. And I call that taking responsibility for your money. And it's step 2 in growing wealth. After making a decision to have wealth, whatever that means for you, and in whatever way it means, not only financial, but other ways, because they're all tied together in a tapestry. And then taking responsibility for your money, and it doesn't have to be heavy. It can be fun.
Yes.
And fulfilling and wonderful.
Yes.
And freeing. And freeing.
And freeing. Imagine that.
Yeah. Wonderful. I'm very pleased to make your acquaintance, Julie. I'm proud of what you're doing, and I'm delighted with your approach and culture. And I suspect that permeates your whole office and your colleagues. So thank you for what you're bringing to the world, to women and their financial well-being.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate the conversation.
This is Dr. Deborah Ekstrom for the Money Loves Women podcast. To your health, to your wealth, and to your happiness, may blessings rain down upon you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Money Loves Women podcast. Please leave us a rating and review so we know how we can improve. Visit moneyloveswomen.com to gain more insight into how to live an extraordinary life.